What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. The Big Show had a wild career up to 2005. The guy was involved in everything, from being a jobber that nobody cared about to going back to OVW to a multi-time world champion. And for as much as WWE wanted to keep him away and force him to improve, their hunger for a credible giant was greater. Big Show was a guy that could do it all, and that's half of the reason why WWE was so frustrated when he didn't work out. He could talk, had charisma, could be the giant or the joke, and that would make him a valuable asset because he's all around. While this was fine and all, Big Show was feeling the effects of being on the road for 300 days. He was constantly smoking, gained a significant amount of weight, and you could see how much the schedule took out of him, but he was going to tough it out for the time being because that's the wrestler's mentality. It's like, hey, this is a part of being a man. You get it. Up to 2005, Big Show had done it all, but even then, there's few moments in time where he was booked properly because while Big Show was a credible wrestler, WWE didn't feel like creating stories centered around him, and for the most part, he was putting over talent. But as always, when Paul Heyman sees a giant, he sees big storylines that create many possibilities. When WWE brought back ECW as the third brand, they saw plenty of opportunities to create an alternative program that stands out compared to Raw and SmackDown. At the time, Raw and SmackDown weren't all that different from each other, and it was more of the same. And this was common since around WrestleMania 21 time. ECW offered a huge chance to create something different. While it would involve WWE guys, it still wasn't going to take away from the quality of the show. The Big Show was chosen as one of the new names of this new brand, or as they called it, a new breed unleashed. He turned on his WWE teammates to join the group, and it's funny because Big Show's greatest weapon is just him turning on other people. He showed up at ECW One Night Stand and just laid waste to everyone in sight, and it was so good because Big Show doesn't usually fight with this aggression and intensity. So like beating up on them, and the best thing he added was that ragdoll maneuver. They gave him a new theme song, he's angrier and meaner, and yes, Big Show's a byproduct of the WWE, but he really fit this new spirit of ECW a lot, and if you take him away, there's a huge element missing. Tommy Dreamer made the mistake of unleashing a giant on himself. He got his ass whooped, which is common for Tommy Dreamer. Same thing the following week. Dreamer didn't get the memo last week, but he certainly did here because he stopped messing around with the giant. Rob Van Dam, meanwhile, got caught with weed, and it happened at the worst time, but then again, this is RVD, so obviously it would be strange to see him without any weed. He got punished by dropping his WWE Championship, but as for the ECW one, well, they didn't waste time. On the July 4th, 2006 episode of ECW, Big Show demanded a title shot. He claimed that he was promised a shot at the title and Heyman had to give in to his demands. RVD smoked too much pot because he wanted the match despite the fact that he was hurting and had lost his title. Heyman didn't want to make the match, but RVD forced his hand, and already you could see the shades of that 2002 Brock and Big Show story. I skip a little and see RVD bitch the Big Show, and this got him seething. It's like, bro, why would you want to poke this giant of all people? He's all angry, ready to bust down doors, and the match was official. This one was solid. It's nothing special, and at times you do forget that it's supposed to be Extreme Rules. Big Show at one point threw the referee around like a yo-yo, which was the best part, and this is a huge mistake, seeing as RVD found his way back into it. Then right when he has him down, there's no ref. No problem. Paul Heyman comes to the save just like he did at One Night Stand, but he refused to count the three and instead walked away, allowing for this almost brutal chair shot from the Big Show and a choke slam right onto the chair, and the crowd was silent when they saw this. It's a bit of a weird one to see. In some ways, this represented the death knell of the old ECW. Everyone knew that whatever would follow would not have that same identity of Extreme Championship Wrestling. But on the other side, and just to like talk about this moment, I've never seen someone since in a WWE ring have that much stuff thrown at them. It's insane. And the reason for that is because many of the fans in the arena were actually ECW fans. This wasn't a SmackDown taping show that just so happened to feature ECW. The Big Show's reign has begun, and his start was one of the most random things you'll see. He showed up on Raw after hearing Ric Flair talking about Extreme. He praised him for his accomplishments, but mentioned that Flair has never won the ECW Championship, so he challenged him to a title match in an Extreme Rules match. Now, Flair was enticed. He's like, oh, the opportunity to bleed once more for the 17,000th time, but it was also a chance to be the never seen 17. This challenge wasn't off to the best of starts though. Now, Big Show's title reign also coincided with Heyman becoming once again a dictator and having two guys in riot gear as his security guard. You could even call them brothers if you're familiar. With that said, this is one of the most bizarre matches of 2006. Ric Flair and ECW, number one, and this being the bloodiest match of the year. Now, I expect Ric Flair to bleed, it's common knowledge, blah blah blah. But when you guess the bloodiest match of the year, you wouldn't consider Ric Flair in ECW. It was wonderful. Flair up for the fight, but facing the reality that this was one big mean giant. It was a pure classic match from Ric Flair's best days, that kind of match. He had to channel his dirty side, and Flair is not the biggest guy, but he certainly was one of the smartest. Of course, the fans would love this. It's in line with the ECW. Flair had to have an insane run for minutes on end to take down the Big Show, not even beat him or have a convincing 2 count. Then after dropping him into the tacks, Big Show is unlocked and enraged, and it's like, why would you poke the bear? He's filled with fury and obliterates Flair to retain the title. This was the best match in Big Show's run, and it wasn't even that long. What makes it work is a time-old traditional style. Big guy dominates, small guy has to play smart. The following week certainly was weird. The Undertaker was in ECW. Big Show challenged him to a title match and he accepted. This is so bizarre because this isn't the ECW of later on. It still had a bit of the old identity, but this match was mid. For as much as we could hype it up, blah blah blah, it was just average. The commentary were commentating like this was their big opportunity. It's like they were praying for a chance to get away from the ECW brand, the way they were commentating. But it wasn't anything different from what these two had in the past. They didn't need to do much anyways because the crowd was already invested in them. Then the Great Khali interfered and the match was thrown out. And this is a part of the Punjabi prison story, which, well, it involves Big Show, so let's get into it. The story of this match was about Undertaker losing his touch, although that's mostly coming from JBL, who's yapping. For some reason, he just couldn't overcome the Great Khali, and naturally this was supposed to be their biggest match, but then Khali wasn't cleared to compete. It's hilarious and the most Great Khali thing ever. Have a match set up for him, but go with the other guy. Undertaker was attacked by the Big Show, and Teddy Long decided to give him Khali's spies. Like, you know what? The Undertaker will face you. I used to laugh like crazy when seeing Teddy Long announce stuff like this. He's like, you. And Big Show wanted to collapse. He's like, what the ECW champion? He's about to burst into tears. But then, since this is a Big Show, he ended up bursting into tears. And Big Show's dejected, having already bragged about taking any chance to take out The Undertaker. But with regards to the match, well, this was a very messy match. It limited these two a lot and also forced them to wrestle longer. It was plotting and very dull. And I also think the concept of the Punjabi prison is very hard to pull off. You have 2 cage matches basically. It was rough. These guys tried, but it just didn't work. They had the blood, some of the drama, but it wasn't their night. And Big Show was just pissed because he did all this work for nothing in a match that he almost managed to win. But yeah, you shouldn't watch that match. I don't think you should watch that match. It's not the worst match of the year, definitely not. But it's just one of those matches where it's like, what the hell were they thinking? And I'm not talking about the competitors. Now, this Kane match might be a bit of a gem. They murked each other out here. Destruction, near falls, table spots, blood. And of course, it was going to end one way, but it's the journey there. You know, it's the Wrestling Premiere quote. Plus, Big Show is formally introduced to his next challenger, Sabu. If I had to guess, these big title matches were to promote ECW, and of course it was going to get to one of the very top guys. And one of those guys that showed up turned that night into a notorious one for WWE ECW. The show returned to the Hammerstein Ballroom, and for an ECW show, well, this was the most WWE main event you'll ever see. For one, it wasn't Extreme Rules, and if this was in another arena, you would notice nothing different about it. The fans turned down the match like crazy, and I thought 2015 Roman Reigns showed up with the way they were booing. They cussed out the match, and Big Show and Batista didn't know what to do. They're staring like deers in headlights, trying to time waste. The fans chanted, change the channel, and the best part is the match ended in a DQ. So it's the most WWE main event ever from the beginning to the end to the finish itself. Sabu, though, saved the day. It's tone deaf from WWE to think that these fans that scour the Wrestling Observer, that saw the essence of ECW fade, it's dumb to think that they would enjoy this. It doesn't match ECW at all. Like, Big Show is extreme and angry, but at the same time, it's like, we didn't see any of that here, and his opponent is the most WWE guy ever. Big Show and Sabu wasn't a long build at all. It just saw him try to steal a contract in a ladder match. This set up an Extreme Rules match because Sabu won. It was a flash match in the sense of being something that ended before it could really begin. So you saw a lot of spots. Messy botches, but it does have a bit of a charm, at least to me. They did so much in here. Blasting each other, throwing the chair. Sabu took all these brutal spots, but in the end, it was Big Show who retained the title. Big Show was not done for that night. He showed up during the DX and McMahon's match and helped take out the duo. This would start his involvement in the story. On the side, because they prioritized the DX thing more, he continued shooting with Sabu. Sabu was prevented from using any weapons during their main event that week, but this only made him angrier and led to an ending that saw Sabu go insane and obliterate the Big Show. He retaliated the following week, but that wasn't the main story. Big Show challenged DX to a handicap match. It was initially an Extreme Rules match, but that was changed to a regular match, which I think was a big mistake. The allure of DX and ECW wasn't one imagined, but you would hope it would go the same way that it did for Ric Flair and Kane, a place for them to turn things up and become much wilder. And I kind of wish that was the idea for ECW, where it's like it's very different from Raw and SmackDown, but once guys from Raw and SmackDown show up, they become villains or become well, not villains, but they basically become darker versions of themselves. That was not this match, and it ended in some nonsense DQ with Hardcore Holly interfering. While Unforgiven was a week away, Big Show had to deal with Sabu in an Extreme Rules match. This time around was much better than their SummerSlam match because they actually had time here to do something. But it's not anything special, it's not one of the standout Big Show performances, that's for sure. They did get to face off in the Garden, so there's that. With that said, this Hell in a Cell match is a bit divisive. Regardless of what a certain amount of people will think about it, they cannot deny that it did its job with its intention, which was to end this feud once and for all. Big Show was a bit scary for DX, but if we're being honest, he was a big clown, and that's the narrative people will remember about this match. DX ended their business with the McMahons once and for all, and I already spoke about it a couple of times on this channel, so you can check it out, but Big Show's involvement wasn't the big story. Next up was the Sandman. Sandman was a tough challenge in some ways. The match, though, wasn't that good. The challenger did have something interesting in the beginning, but ultimately it turned into a forgettable affair and had the same method in previous Big Show matches with an interference. His big story around this time period was the Champion of Champions. Big Show, John Cena, and King Booker argued about who's the best champion. This is a funny segment. They're yapping and insulting each other. Oh, my movie did the best. It's Waterboy. And it's basically like Funaki saying his show WrestleMania 22 was incredible. Like, you were on the pre-show, buddy. Meanwhile, Rob Van Dam had to climb multiple hurdles to get himself a chance at the ECW Championship. He beat Big Show 2 times in a row, with the second match being a ladder match. Big Show is dealing with so much. None of his performances were casual and easy, and the worst part is that he was at his roughest physically, but ECW was basically different from WWE. For as much as they already changed it, the essence of hardcore was still around, at least in a main event. And he was pushing himself much harder. He had back problems, various injuries, yet you'd see him bloody every week. Rob Van Dam did get his title shot, but it wasn't on his terms. For one, they were telling the story of RVD rebuilding back to reclaim the title and overcome Paul Heyman, and naturally you'd expect him to be in line for the title, but at this point, WWE gave up on him and it went from bad to worse after he rejected the Tribute to the Troops invitation. You know, it's optional, but you guys know the corporate terms. You could check out this video on that. With that said, Cyber Sunday was a solid match. The issue is that Big Show was exhausted. The guy just wasn't the same, so the spotlight wasn't really on him. It was also a title match for the World Heavyweight Championship, so the result was obvious. K-Fed was involved, and I don't know why Kevin Federline pops up on the headlines or on my channel, but it's occasional. It bothers me because this guy's just a dancer who happened to marry the most popular pop star of that era, but he's a good professional when it comes to wrestling. Big Show is menacing, and at this point, nobody could overcome him for that title. But an Extreme Elimination Chamber match was set for December to dismember. Oh my god, we're back to this event, bro. Come on. You guys know what I think about it. Let the buy rates hit the floor, all that stuff. But while Big Show was dominant, a match was found for the Giant. Hardcore Holly was supposed to be the final member of the Chamber match, but then SmackDown's Bobby Lashley stole his opportunity and made a statement by spearing the Big Show. He was also featuring in the Survivor Series elimination match between John Cena's team and of course the Big Show's. Decent elimination match. I don't have much to say on it because I plan on actually revisiting it with a Survivor Series video, but Bobby Lashley was put over big time by being a survivor of his team along with John Cena. And do we need to mention the 500-pound FU? It still looks impressive. Big Show did have the upper hand on Lashley before December to dismember though. It took an extreme amount of pressure from Paul Heyman's guys to overpower him and leave him laying. Now December to dismember really was a bad show. You guys know it. Everyone on YouTube talked about it before, including me, but we just want to talk about it quickly for this Big Show match. It also highlighted just how weak the ECW show was. They gave up on it in the past, but this show in particular basically caused ECW to go into the bin as a major show for the WWE. I don't think this Chamber match is the worst one. It's top 5 worst, but I don't think the criticisms of the show's quality falls on this match. The booking, yes, but the actual match, no. I like the concept of weapons inside the chamber. Sure, it does take away from the brutality of the Elimination Chamber by highlighting weapons over the actual structure, but it doesn't hurt to do one of these occasionally. The big issue with this match is how once again it deviated away from the vision of ECW. Nothing about the last third of the match resembles ECW, and I also think Big Show went down too easy with the story they were telling. I know the original plan was for him to tap out to CM Punk, or at least that was pitched by Heyman, but even in the plans that Vince made to create this narrative of Lashley winning the title, he didn't have much of a tough time with Big Show. With Bobby Lashley, I think his road to the title was too clean cut, not to mention that he was pretty green at the time. He did turn out good in the future, but here, he was rushed. and sometimes you might have to rush said talent. I don't know how Bobby Lashley would have turned out if he stayed in WWE, but I'm almost certain he would have won the world title. Paul Heyman ended up quitting as a result of this show. His vision of ECW died twice, first on July 4th and now on December 3rd. As for the Big Show, he made his final appearance later that week in a rematch against Bobby Lashley. This is a typical and simple story that naturally was designed to put over Bobby Lashley. He comes in, dominates, but Lashley shows resiliency and comes back. It was a solid match. He messed up the ending to the match with the power slam, so they had to run it back again. Big Show took the L and departed the WWE. Now, with regards to this run, before I talk about Big Show's exit, I thought it was a solid run, but I do think it got a bit boring after the summer. I like the idea of these challengers coming in, major stars by the way, not some randoms, coming in to challenge the Big Show. It, one, makes ECW feel like the place to be, and number two, makes the title itself seem big time. What I do take issue with is just how slow everything felt after the summer. I do wish more challengers came in from outside of ECW and even inside, like they were doing with RVD and these guys, to make it feel big time. Big Show in this role was great. The only reason people do not talk about this run is simply down to the fact that it was during the early days of the new ECW, and you guys know there was a lot of attention, negative attention towards the early version of WWE ECW because people wanted to see what this was. Now, if this ECW Big Show happened in 2007, 2008, people would have been talking about it more. But if we're being honest, this is one of the very best runs in his career and certainly one of the most underrated technically it's a world championship reigns you'll see. It was so simple. They took an old method, big dominant giant, people coming and challenging. It felt like a throwback, and that's the allure of it for me at least. Big Show was more extreme, he was more vicious, he was a bit different from what we were used to, and that made for good television at times. If this happened with the World Heavyweight Championship, I think people would have liked it way more. They would have held it in higher regard, but because it's the original ECW that was butchered, you guys know how it went. The best match is clearly the Ric Flair one. I don't even need to mention why, you guys know. But numerous reports stated Big Show had multiple injuries throughout the year. He had a messed up back, and all around he was not in the best condition. The big rumor at the time was that Hulk Hogan and the Big Show were supposed to face off at WrestleMania 23. And I believe it since it was 20 years since the Silver Dome and one of the most iconic WrestleMania moments. It makes sense to run it back. And I don't mean it makes sense as a viewer, but it makes sense because WWE likes commemorating things. They ended up doing it in Memphis anyways later that month. But Big Show wanted out of the WWE to recover. He needed it, especially if he wanted to get in better shape. WWE will run you down, and this is coming off Eddie's death, Jericho's departure, Angle's departure. A lot of guys either felt the effects of the schedule or pilled themselves up to ease the pain. Big Show's contract expired in March of 2007, and he worked hard to recover. He kept a low profile throughout 2007. You never saw him barring that Memphis match with Hulk Hogan, in which he called the Big Show his slave name. He must have been one of the richest slaves in history, right? But I get what he means in certain ways. Now, this break was super important for the Big Show. He needed a refresh, not from a character standpoint, but his actual health. He got into better shape, and once 2008 rolled around, he was ready for his return. I already covered his first storyline back here. You could watch it there. But yeah. Alright. What do you guys think of Big Show's Extreme Run ECW run? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the final cut on the like button, and perhaps the choke slam on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.